I have something to share with you, X. Something that I'm not even fully sure what the fuck was going on myself, if I'm being completely honest. I have some ideas, but I need you to help me out. Be me. I work security at a storage facility just on the outskirts of my town. Just your standard place that you would expect, nothing too fancy. Rows and rows of orange roll-up doors, chain link fences, keypads for entry to each unit. We have probably around 300 or so units in total for us to rent out and manage. We had anything ranging from tiny 5x5s to full garage-sized spaces for people needing that kind of space. The rental price obviously varied depending on the size too. Thankfully, it was not my job to worry about all of that shit. Most of the time, it was just a quiet job. I would walk the perimeter, check the gate logs from time to time, check security cameras. Had to make sure people came back out again, because by law, people are not allowed to sleep in their storage units, and we can accrue massive fines from the state, and even get shut down if it happens multiple times. Now, because of privacy laws and whatnot, we only have exterior security cameras installed, so we can't watch the inside of the units, but they cover absolutely everywhere. Nothing can get in or out without us knowing. Renters are allowed to install their own personal security cameras if they want to for personal use, just for peace of mind. Nothing high-tech though, they can't install wires and shit, usually just cheap, wireless pieces of shit. Anyway, it wasn't anything glamorous, or even high-paying really, but I really like the quiet. I like being in my own thoughts, and just getting shit done alone. I usually worked the overnight shift, as the pay was ever so slightly better, and I could get more work because a lot of people did not want to do that shit, because they had families or whatever. I was single at the time, so it worked out well for me. Most nights, I would not see another soul. You would occasionally have people stopping by to grab things from their units, but it was quite rare, if I'm being honest. It was usually just me, a flashlight, and the occasional raccoon or something like that. Anyway, so this was maybe 4 weeks ago or so now that this happened. I can't recall exactly. We got a brand new tenant. Some middle-aged guy. Clean cut. Just your average guy. Nothing unique about his appearance. He drove a grey Honda Civic. He said his name was Greg, I think. Paid 3 months' rent in cash up front. Seems we had a high roller on our hands. He rented out one of the larger units that we had on offer. Unit C14, I think, was the one, which doesn't really mean much to you. It just relates to the layout of the place. Basically, it was just tucked in a corner of the far row. Nothing struck me as unusual about him. People rented for all kinds of reasons, so you end up seeing it all really. Some are for business, people storing things in between moves. You sometimes even get these crazy hoarders. I mean, hey, as long as they are paying and causing no trouble, right? What did end up becoming especially strange to me about this guy was just how often he would stop by to check on his unit. I mean, it was bordering on obsession. He would just keep coming by and checking and checking. He would check for the day, but he would also come by at night too. I first noticed it when I checked the keypad logs one night. Just a routine check. Every night, between around 2 a.m. and 3 a.m., his code was registered as being input to enter the gate. I saw him once or twice, but a lot of times, I would just straight up miss him. The logs were always clear. He was there at that time almost every night for a week straight. It was always at that same time in the dead of the night, and he would always stay around for around an hour at a time. But then, one night, I managed to catch him as he was going in, or while he was already in his unit, rather. It was around 2:30 a.m. I think. I was just doing my usual rounds, when I saw something strange. I saw a light. We don't allow lights to be set up inside units. It's a fire hazard issue, and we have it in our policy because we would just rather not take the chance. But yeah, this was not a flashlight. That would of course be fine. I could see a dim, flickering glow spilling out from underneath the door of his fucking unit. I did not really want to waste my energy interacting with this dude, but he left me with no choice. I walked over and did a light knock on the door. I did not want to make him jump out of his skin. Silence. No answer. Then, the light that I could see from under the door went out. I knocked again, way harder this time. I called out to him to get his attention. I told him it was security checking up on him. I shouted and reminded him that any kind of lighting or electrical wiring like that set up was not allowed. I still did not get any answer from the guy inside. I stood there for a moment with my hand on the lock, debating whether I should knock again or say fuck it and use the master key to let myself in. Technically, I was not allowed to let myself into these units unless there was an emergency, or I was authorized by my boss to do some kind of inspection. I don't know though, something just did not sit right with me. I suppose technically it was an emergency because policy was being broken and this guy could be hurt. Yeah, very flimsy reasoning that I'm sure would have bitten me in the ass, but I was not thinking too deeply about it at that moment. I decided to give into my brain and left him for the night. Decided to just make a log of the incident in the system, and that way, my ass would be covered, and if he did it again, I would have actual cause to let myself in. So, I came back the next day for my shift. I was doing my routine checks and just checking footage from the previous night. I found something pretty weird. The camera showed Greg arriving at around 2:06 a.m. He parked his Civic outside the gate and then walked in on foot. He walked straight to his unit. But here is the thing. This motherfucker never left last night. At least, there was nothing on cameras showing him leaving. No footage of him exiting the unit. No footage of his car pulling away. Nothing like that at all. I thought surely this must be a glitch. I checked different angles and footage from different cameras. Nope. He walks in, disappears into his unit, and then nothing at all. Just nothing. If this fucker was sleeping in there, I was not going to be happy. Well, I suppose I had actual cause to check his unit now. I was going to give Greg the surprise of his life. So, that night was when I decided to open up the unit. Around the same time, Greg would usually arrive actually. I had the master keys. I gave another knock to see if he was in there, and I logged it in the system as potential suspicious activity / breaking a policy. I opened the door and immediately smelled something strange. Not rot. Not at first anyway. It was more chemical, like antiseptic mixed with metal. A coppery tang that made the back of my throat tighten. The air inside felt heavier somehow. I had to raise my flashlight because I could barely see shit. That is when I saw it. The entire interior was completely transformed from what it used to be. Nothing like a storage unit anymore. All 4 walls were lined top to bottom with reflective silver mylar sheets, the kind used in insulation or survival blankets. The floor was covered in thick, heavy-duty plastic tarp. It was laid out perfectly smooth, not a wrinkle in sight, like someone had taken their time with it. No dust, no debris, just pristine plastic underfoot, like a clean room or a kill room. And at the very back, the entire wall was concealed behind a large blue tarp, industrial grade, duct taped into place in a rough square, a makeshift wall. It bulged slightly at the bottom, like something was pressing against it from the other side. Scattered around the unit were strange pieces of equipment. None of it really made sense to me. A small gas generator sat near the entrance. It was switched off, but reeked of old fuel. Wires ran from it across the floor in looping, tangled veins. Some led to a bank of car batteries lashed together with jumper cables. Others disappeared beneath the blue tarp. There was a short metal table off to the left. On it sat a device I did not recognize, like something between a pressure cooker and an autoclave. It was old and scorched, like it had been modified by someone. Tubes ran from it into jars filled with murky liquid. One had something floating inside it, something small, fleshy. I did not get close enough to see what it was. On the floor in the center of the unit was a spiral-bound notebook. It was open. Pages were curled and stained. I crouched down. I tried my best not to knock or disturb anything. The pages were filled with line after line of numbers, timestamps maybe. Some were followed by dates, others by symbols. The symbols were like circles with lines through them, triangles nested inside squares, things I did not recognize, meant nothing to me at all. But the last entry was different. The writing was jagged, scrawled, like it had been written in a hurry. It just said, "If this works, I will see her again." That is when I heard it, a sound from behind the blue tarp, like something twitching or scraping, like metal on concrete. It happened once every so often. It was not constant. I nearly dropped nuclear-grade bricks inside my pants. I called out a hello, thinking that maybe Greg was actually still in there, sleeping maybe. No answer. The tarp just twitched a little. A slight movement near the bottom, as if someone had brushed against it. And that is when I saw it. A foot, pale and bare, just visible under the edge of the tarp, motionless, toes curled slightly inward, like whoever it belonged to had been standing still for a long time. Something was wrong with it. The skin did not look right. Too smooth, almost waxy. No hair, no dirt, just white, veined and wet looking. Then I heard something else. It sounded like maybe a breath. It came from behind the tarp, and it was followed by a low, electrical click. A sound like an old hard drive spinning up, then followed by a tone, like a shortwave frequency blip. I had enough. I was not paid enough for whatever the fuck this was. We obviously had an obsessive loony who decided a storage unit was the best place for a high school science project, and that he bought some creepy doll or whatever to do testing on. I was just gonna call up my boss and let him sort the shit out. I walked straight out and closed the unit and locked it behind me. I called it in and told my boss everything, every single detail I could remember. Made sure to show him the logs so it did not look like I broke in on a hunch. Fucking police showed up an hour later. I thought his stuff would just get thrown out. I did not realize it was that serious. It was 3 cruisers and an unmarked sedan. They questioned me, grilled me really fucking hard. I told them every single detail I've written down for you here, X. Whatever was going on, I was not getting myself into shit. I was detained for a couple of hours on scene while they sorted everything out. Wasn't even on the clock, so no pay for me either, for fuck's sake. Some guys showed up in fucking hazmat suits. What the fuck? They took every last thing out of there. Brought out and hauled off the generator, the batteries, the notebook. Some stuff wrapped up in bags and tarp. Every last item they took for evidence, and then sealed the unit off until further notice. I thought my boss would have been pissed at the income loss, but he just seemed stunned more than anything, rattled even. One of the guys in the hazmat gear, I swear, had a fucking Geiger counter, and I swear I heard it ticking. I was furious, thinking I might get sick and miss work. I needed the damn money. Police really did not tell me much, apart from the fact that they were still looking for Greg, and for me to call them if I had any more information, or if I remembered anything else. I asked about the doll or whatever I saw, and they just told me not to worry. Told me it was probably just a prosthetic or something like that. Probably. Please, 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 fucking help me out here, X. Please tell me I did not walk in on some mad scientist doing weird experiments. If I die from radiation instead of getting superpowers, I'm gonna be pissed. Hey, I hope you've enjoyed the story so far. If you do and you want to hear more, please leave a like and subscribe to my channel, and leave a comment down below, as it lets the algorithm know that you like my content and it promotes it to more people. My goal for the channel is to hit 50,000 subscribers, and we're closing in fast, so thank you, and back to the stories. I am and have been a paramedic for about 10 years. My entire career has been spent in emergency medicine, responding to 911 calls and providing advanced life support for life-threatening illnesses and injuries. The calls we respond to range from inappropriate use of an ambulance to minutes away from death, and oftentimes it is already too late. In 2014, I moved to another city, a couple hours away from home to work. The city was smallish, less than 100,000 people, but the ambulance serviced the entire county where the city resides. At that time, there was a significant oil boom in the area, so thousands of people flooded the city and county to work in the oil fields nearby. This caused the city to get a little rougher, as you have people from all over the country moving there to work, and that many people in a small place increased the cost of living, and we saw a large increase in violent crimes as well as traumatic injuries. We worked 24-hour shifts, which weren't too bad. The days were usually somewhat busy, and at night, the ambulance station had rooms with twin beds that allowed you to get some fairly decent sleep at night. Most of the calls that would classify as crazy, creepy, or scary always tend to come at night. The day that this story takes place was a little different than normal. Normally, I get an EMT basic partner, which means, since I am the advanced provider on the truck, I get all of the patients. But today, I had another paramedic partner, because we were training a new hire paramedic. It was her first day in FTO, field training orientation. This means we generally let her take the calls and sit back and evaluate her performance to ensure she is capable and does not kill anyone. This was her first job after graduation, so she was still pretty green. I could see that she was very nervous and trying very hard to do her best. So, as per usual, the day was pretty busy, but as it began to wind down, I was getting ready to attempt to take a nap. I kick off my boots and lay down on the bed on top of the covers. Easier to get up and going that way if a call comes in. I put my radio up by my head, full volume like always, so I can be sure to wake up if we get a call. Sure enough, midnight starts to roll around, and I hear a call go out. Dispatch says, man who has been stabbed is not breathing. Luckily, it's not my call, and another ambulance responds, so I go back to bed, or try to. About 30 minutes later, another call goes out, and this time it is for me. Dispatch information. Man with a knife wound on his hands. Police are on the scene. I get my boots on, wake up the new girl and my partner, and walk out to the ambulance. The area of the call was right smack dab in the middle of downtown. We responded non-emergent, as it was not a life-threatening injury. As we arrive on the scene, there is probably around 6 police cars on scene, all with their lights on. The area itself was through an alleyway and behind a building just off the main street. As we pull up, there are a number of officers, a couple sheriff deputies, and a detective, all standing around this man with a rag on his hand. As I got closer, I could see the man was bald, middle-aged, and had an almost homeless look to him. He also had a big dark spot in the middle of his forehead. One of the officers approached me to fill me in on what's going on before I talk to the guy and start to treat him. The officer tells me the man has a large laceration on the back of his hand that he received from a knife. At this point, I was still a bit groggy and did not put 2 and 2 together. The officer says the man said he was attacked by another man and that he is probably going to need stitches. So, as it is not serious, I have my FDO approach first to begin for assessment and give me her treatment plan. I stay close behind her, and we both walk up to the man who is in handcuffs. As we approach, the dark spot on the guy's forehead is now clear. On the center of his forehead, stretching from his eyebrows and what would have been his hairline, is the biggest swastika tattoo I have ever seen. My FTO begins to talk to the man as I stand back and observe. Something about that man's general composure and responses chilled me. When we first walked up, the man was muttering something underneath his breath. I could not tell what he was saying, but he was repeating it over and over. My FTO asked police to uncuff him to see the cut on his hand more clearly. At this point, one of the other officers produced the knife he believes to be the weapon that caused the injury. The knife was in an evidence baggie, and it was covered in blood. It was nothing special. It just looked like a cheap plastic pocket knife, like you would buy at some cheesy gift shop. It was a folding knife with a black plastic handle, and a blade that was maybe 3 inches long, with a bit of a serration towards the handle. The man showed us his hand. On the back, cutting right through another large swastika tattoo, was a laceration that went from the base of his pinky finger to the lower fleshy part of the thumb. It was quite wide also, approximately 3 centimeters, exposing the bones of his metacarpals as well as his tendons. The bleeding had mostly just stopped, with pressure from the towel he was holding onto. When my partner asked the man what had happened, the man then repeated to us what he had been repeatedly muttering to himself. "I killed that man. He's dead, man. I had to have killed him. He's gotta be dead." At this point, I am starting to put it together and understanding the larger picture. We get the man into the ambulance so we can assess for any other injuries that may not be visible under his clothing. After a thorough search, we realize that there are no other injuries, so we begin to transport him to the hospital. My FTO bandaged the man's hands, and as we are driving, I start to ask questions to try and figure out the details. The man told me everything I wanted to know, and never lost that chilling vibe, staring distantly as he recounted what happened. The man told me that he is homeless and was wandering around when a friend offered him a ride. He says that he was leery of the man, but decided to get in anyway and accept the offer. The man said the friend began asking him if he hated black people. The man said he didn't, and that he wasn't racist. He tells me this is when his friend became upset with him and tried to stab him with a pocket knife. The man said he attempted to defend himself, managed to wrestle the knife away from his friend, and stabbed him back before jumping out of the car and running. So with this shocking telling of the tale, we continue to transport the men in silence. Also, as a side note, an officer rode in the ambulance with us the whole way. After we dropped the man off at the ER, we all kind of sat there shocked, leaving the hospital. We returned to the station and tried to get some sleep. However, we were not destined for sleep this night. An hour later, we get another call for a body removal from downtown, less than 3 blocks away from our last call. We pull up to the area, which is in the middle of the street. The street itself is blocked off 100 feet on both sides by a fire truck and police cars. The fire truck was equipped with a double stack of 4 halogen lights, risen up on the ladder, shining down to illuminate the area. Walking up with the stretcher and body bag, the detective on scene tells us they are done with the investigation and that they are ready for us to take the body to the medical examiner's office. At this point, we are still about 50 feet away from where the body lay. From where we are, I can see the person lying in the middle of the street. We get closer and take a few minutes to examine the body. What I say and putting together what I was told is astonishing, to say the least. The man, another middle-aged man, appears white, possibly Mexican, lays in the middle of the street on his back with his arms spread eagle and his legs straight. There is a vehicle parked on the side of the road, with its driver door still open. I figured that must be the guy's vehicle. It was parked neatly, not haphazardly or incorrectly. The deceased man has streaks of blood coming from his nose and mouth, with several small puncture wounds on his face and cheeks. Looking at his torso, there were about a dozen more knife-shaped puncture wounds in his chest and abdomen. Most of the wounds were so jagged and barbaric looking, you could see adipose tissue, fat, pushing out of them. There wasn't much of a blood puddle under the man, but a very large trail of blood ran from the man to the side of the street where the curb is. The blood then continues its flow another 10 feet along the curb before spilling into a storm drain. With that much blood, the man was exsanguinated and bled out there in the middle of the street. We packaged the man into the body bag and transported him to the ME's office. When we got back to the station, my charge medic told me that the officer that rode with the first patient requested that we fill out a report on what we heard the men say. Thankfully, the rest of the shift was uneventful. Fast forward to a couple years ago, I received a call from the state's attorney. He asked if I remembered the call, to which I informed him I do. He told me that this person is going to trial for murder, is pleading not guilty, and he would like to go over my statement along with me, as I would be a key witness and require my testimony in court. We went over my statement and we talked about it a bit. Then, he told me that he would be in touch and wished me a good day. A few days later, he calls me up again and informs me that the man had changed his plea to self-defense and that I was needed in court in a week. Literally one day before the trial, he calls me up again. He tells me this time the man changed his plea to guilty and that I was no longer needed. I don't know what happened after that. I never really looked into it. It's just another brick in the wall, so to speak. A story filed away in my brain, probably never to be forgotten. Okay, this is not a forest story, but a forest is near. I live in the Baltics, by the way. Be me, year ago, summer, August. Me and my friend biking to the river through the fields. River is 6 kilometers away. Some through the fields, some through Forest Road, some down the forest lane. Arrive on our bikes at approximately 6 p.m. It's still lighty and stuff, so no need for flashlight. Swim a bit, eat some sandwiches, drink a bottle of wine, 1 on 2 people. It's a miserably low amount of alcohol, so we just chill and discuss our lives and stuff. The river is visited by fishermen sometimes. They tend to leave old stuff here. I found a towel next to me with what seems bloodstains. My friend found a broken butter knife, supposedly sharpened, 'cause it cuts paper good. We checked while he rolled his tobacco. Damn, murderers here. We decide to chill about that shit. 8 p.m. already, darkens. We still chill and hear some snoring from the bushes. If it was a shit creep, we would be dead. The riverbank is down the hill, and our bike's tied to a tray up the hill. Search the bushes, nothing. Thought it's a ghost, or a half-dead bloke being left in the bushes. After another search, realized that was an otter swimming near the shore. Fuck these freaks. 9 p.m. Decide to chill again and watch some shit on a tablet, just for fun. 10:30 p.m. "'Kay, go home bro," I said. Unchain our bike and go through the river forest. Feel someone's presence here, like someone is watching. Friend feels the same. The road is dirt, and he has the dirt bike. I have a Soviet city bike, which is semi-fit for such shit. I'm a bit slower. We drive down the forest road. The feeling disappeared. Take a rest at the gravel road, on concrete plates left by the side. Again, this freaking feeling. Shit beating in the bushes. I throw a stone and hear a gargling like yelling. No big furries in the area. Wolves died ages ago. Foxes might be, or beavers, but definitely not them. Too spooky for us. Drive our bike to the fields. Fields are dark, and you can only see the forest around. Creepy stuff altogether. Drive on the field roads, and the shit begins. Friend sees something running in the fields by his right side. I see the same. I thought it could maybe be a stray dog or something like that. The thing leaped from one field side to another, across the road, right in front of us. It is dark. There is no light equipped on us. The only thing we saw, an almost human face, chupacabra-like, crippled, anorexic body. I always carry a knife with me. We parked near the fields, and I hold the knife and tell my friend the guess that I have about all this shit. One of my other friends told me a story. He is a paranormal junkie with a serious insight into the stuff. No Slavic folklore. Told about Irka, a lower forest demon who shapeshifts. If he follows you, he recreates familiar voices or yells. Never look back at him or stop if he leaps near you. Friend with whom I drove. Had a feeling our common friend V was yelling and scaring us, but I did not hear it. Now we are both scared shitless. Hide my knife, and we drive home. We'll investigate this year again, with the paranormal junkie and friend. End of story. I am a fucking 21-year-old uni student, and I am scared shitless. Slavic Skinwalker.